Hey there, welcome back to the channel. After all this time, they finally texted you. But why now? What do they really want? And more importantly, how should you respond? The answer isn't as simple as you think, because this isn't just about a message. It's about power, control, and your emotional strength. That one text can stir up so many emotions. Maybe it's excitement, maybe it's anger, or maybe it's just confusion. One part of you wants to ignore it completely. Another part wants to demand answers, and maybe, just maybe, there's still a small part that hopes this time will be different. But before you do anything, you need to stop and ask yourself a few questions. Why now? Why not weeks ago, months ago? What changed? Because I'll tell you this much, people don't just reach out for no reason. That text isn't just about checking in, it's about testing you. See, when someone loses access to you, they start to wonder. At first, they might not care. Maybe they even expected you to chase after them, to send those late-night messages, to keep them in your orbit. But when you didn't, that's when the shift happens. They realize they're not as important to you as they thought they were. And that's where their ego kicks in. Because most people don't come back out of love. They come back out of curiosity, boredom, or guilt. They want to know, do you still think about them? Would you still reply instantly? Are you still the person they walked away from? And if you answer too quickly, if you show them that nothing has changed, they will mentally place you right back where you were before. They'll assume they still have power over you. And once they get that validation, they might just disappear again. So let me be clear, this isn't just about whether you reply or not. This is about how you respond. Are you reacting emotionally, giving them exactly what they want? Or are you handling this from a place of strength? You see, most people make the mistake of responding too quickly, too emotionally, or too openly. They either fall into old habits, over-explain themselves, or let their feelings take over. And that's exactly why you need to think before you react. Because your response determines the power dynamic from this point forward. So, before we begin, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I control my response, not my emotions. Because that's the key. You can't control who texts you. You can't control what they say, but you can control how you respond, and that alone is enough to change the game. Now, let's break it down step by step. Number 1, the psychology behind their text. People don't just reach out randomly. There's always a reason. That message you just got, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a random thought. It was calculated, whether consciously or subconsciously. And the question you need to ask yourself isn't, why did they text? But, what do they gain from texting me? Because let's be real, people don't check in just to be nice. There's something driving them. And most of the time, it's not love. It's curiosity, regret, boredom, or ego. One of the biggest reasons they text is regret, but not always the kind you think. Sometimes they do realize what they lost. They look at their life and compare it to what they had with you. They remember the love, the support, the connection. And when they don't find that same depth with someone else, they start wondering if they made a mistake. But regret alone doesn't always mean change. Just because they miss you doesn't mean they deserve another chance. Then there's boredom, and this is a dangerous one. Some people text because they have nothing better to do. Maybe they saw an old picture, maybe they had a bad day, maybe they just want entertainment, and you are always a safe option. They're not reaching out because they care about you. They're reaching out because they want something to do. And the moment they get distracted by something else, they'll disappear again. Then comes ego. This is where it gets tricky. Some people don't want you back, but they don't want you to move on either. They don't love you, but they love knowing you still care. And nothing feeds an ego more than knowing someone is still waiting for them. When they text, they're not looking to reconnect. They're checking their grip on you. They want to see if they still have access, if they can still stir up your emotions, if they still hold power in your mind. And if you respond exactly how they expect, they get their answer. But the biggest reason, the one most people overlook, is silence. Silence creates mystery. The less they know about you, the more they wonder. And the more they wonder, the more they start questioning themselves. Do you still think about them? Have you moved on? Are you happier without them? That uncertainty eats away at them, and suddenly they text. Not because they're ready to change, not because they truly care, but because not knowing is driving them crazy. And here's the most important thing to understand. Their message isn't about you. It's about them. They don't miss you, they miss knowing they had you. They don't want you back, they want the option of you back. So before you reply, before you give them an inch of your energy, ask yourself, do they deserve access to me again? Number 2, the biggest mistake most people make. The moment that message pops up, something shifts inside you. Your heart races, your mind scrambles for meaning, and before you even think, your fingers are hovering over the keyboard, ready to respond. But stop. This is exactly what they want. They want to trigger an emotional reaction. They want proof that they still exist in your mind. And most importantly, they want to see if they still have power over you. The biggest mistake most people make is responding too quickly and too emotionally. The second you let emotions take over, you lose control. You might think you're being strong, but if you reply impulsively, you're handing them confirmation that they still affect you. And that's where the power shift begins. Most people fall into one of two traps. The first trap? Over-explaining. You feel the need to justify yourself. You want them to understand how much you've changed, how much you've healed, how you're doing just fine without them. So you type out something like, "Hey, wow, it's been a long time. I've been thinking about you too. Hope you're doing okay." It sounds harmless, right? But here's the problem. It's exactly what they were fishing for. The moment you acknowledge that you've been thinking about them, you confirm their relevance in your life. And that's exactly what they wanted to know. The second trap? Seeking closure. This one is tricky because it feels like the mature thing to do. You might ask, "Why are you texting me now?" Or, "What do you want?" But here's the harsh truth. People don't owe you closure. And most of the time, they don't even have a real answer. They might give you some vague excuse, "I was just thinking about you." But what does that actually mean? Nothing. It's an empty statement designed to keep you emotionally hooked. And this is where you need to apply Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That means you don't play their game. You don't let their sudden reappearance drag you back into a cycle you already escaped from. You don't react with over-explanation or curiosity. You respond with control. So what should you do instead? You pause. You take a deep breath. You remind yourself that just because they reached out doesn't mean they deserve a response. And if you do choose to reply, you do it on your terms, not theirs. When you control your response, you control the dynamic. And that's the one thing they never expected. Number 3, what do they really want? Not all texts mean the same thing. While some might seem innocent, others are calculated attempts to see if you'll still bite. You might get a simple "Hey" or "How have you been?" These aren't just casual questions, they're tests. They're fishing for a response to gauge your availability, your emotional state, and how much power they still hold over you. Let's break it down. A vague message like, "Hey," doesn't carry any substance. It's a tactic designed to spark curiosity and keep you guessing. Why now? What do they want from you? It's the kind of message that gets your mind racing, and that's exactly what they're counting on. They want to see if they can pull you back into the cycle. But remember, this isn't a message of genuine interest. It's a breadcrumb, and it's not meant to lead anywhere productive. But what if the text is more emotional, like a lengthy apology or a heartfelt message about how much they've changed? Here's where you need to decode it carefully. Real remorse doesn't come in a single text. Real change is shown in actions over time. If someone truly regrets their behavior, they don't just shoot a quick message and assume everything is fixed. They show effort, accountability, and consistency. So, if you receive an emotional apology, ask yourself, is this about making me feel better, or are they just trying to ease their own guilt? Often, apologies are just damage control. They might want to clear their conscience, not necessarily repair the relationship. And if their behavior hasn't changed, that's a red flag. Another common scenario is when they suddenly want to catch up after a long period of silence. But when you look closely, they haven't actually put in any real effort. They didn't try to reach out when they were supposed to. They didn't check in or follow through when things were hard. Now, out of nowhere, they want to talk as if nothing ever happened. That's not genuine interest. That's boredom. When someone is truly interested in you, they don't wait until they're bored or lonely to reach out. They make a consistent effort. This is where you need to trust your instincts. Your job is not to overthink every word they send, trying to find some hidden meaning. Instead, your job is to observe their actions. Actions speak louder than words, and if their behavior doesn't match their message, you have your answer. Ask yourself, what do they really want? Are they reaching out because they miss you, or because they miss the comfort you provided? Are they hoping for a fresh start, or are they just testing the waters to see if you're still available when it suits them? Don't let yourself get caught in the illusion of change based on empty words. Real change is tangible. It's seen in consistent effort, not just words in a text message. And most importantly, remember, you are not a convenience. You are not someone to be reached out to only when it's convenient for them. You are worth more than a random text sent out of boredom or loneliness. You deserve someone who sees your value and acts on it every single day. So next time you get a text, decode the message. Don't fall for the bait. Pay attention to their actions. You'll know exactly what they're after. Number 4. Should you even reply? Before you even think about responding, take a moment to check in with yourself. Do they deserve your energy? This is the most important question you need to ask. And the answer isn't always as obvious as it seems. If you've moved on, if you're healed, emotionally strong, and genuinely indifferent, then a short, neutral reply might be fine. You don't need to play games or overthink it. Something like, "Hope you're doing well," keeps the power in your hands without diving back into a conversation you've outgrown. But if their message triggers something deep in you, whether it's anger, sadness, or confusion, that's a huge red flag. When a text hits you emotionally, it's a sign that you haven't fully closed that chapter yet. And if you haven't healed, replying can pull you right back into an emotional space you've worked so hard to leave behind. It's important to recognize that silence is not weakness. In fact, silence is power. You don't have to react to everything that comes your way, especially when it's something that has the potential to hurt you or pull you back into a toxic situation. Not replying immediately or even at all sends a message louder than any words you could type back. If someone who once ignored you, neglected you, or mistreated you now finds the courage to text, let them sit with the same silence they once gave you. You've already done the work to get here, to a place where you no longer feel desperate for validation, and where your peace is more valuable than any conversation with them. Remember, you are in control of your emotional state. You don't need to respond to someone simply because they reached out. You control how much of your energy you give away. The truth is, not responding can be one of the most powerful forms of self-care. It forces them to confront the fact that you're no longer playing by their rules, that you are no longer available for their emotional games. In many ways, not responding forces them to reflect on what they've lost and why they don't have access to you anymore. That's power you don't need to say a word for. It speaks for itself. Now, let's make this clear. Silence doesn't mean you're weak or afraid to face them. On the contrary, it shows emotional control and strength. You're choosing not to react because you know that in this moment, it's the healthiest choice for you. It shows that you are no longer emotionally dependent on their approval or validation, and that's an incredibly empowering place to be. So, next time they text, don't rush to respond. Give yourself the gift of time and emotional control. Your silence may be the most powerful message you can send. Drop this affirmation in the comments. Silence is power. Number 5. The high-value response strategy. So let's say you've thought about it and you've decided to reply. The key now is responding in a way that maintains your emotional control, keeps your self-respect intact, and reminds them of the person you've become. Here's how you do it. Keep it short, neutral, and detached. If they text you something emotional, like, "I miss you," don't fall into the trap of responding with an emotional overload, like, "I miss you too," or "I've been thinking about you non-stop." That's what they're expecting, and it puts you back in the position of powerlessness. Instead, respond with something like, "Hope you're doing well." This keeps the conversation polite, acknowledges their message, but doesn't give anything away. You are not obligated to match their emotional intensity. Let's say you get a message like, "Why did you stop talking to me?" or "What happened between us?" It can be tempting to dive into a deep explanation or even seek closure, but high-value people don't beg for clarity. They don't chase answers. They wait, they watch, and they let others reveal themselves. If they truly want to understand what happened or why you pulled away, they need to do the work themselves. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't need to justify your actions or dive back into the past. You've moved forward, and your response should reflect that. The essence of high value is knowing your worth without needing constant validation. By keeping your responses short and neutral, you send the message that you're no longer emotionally dependent on them for answers or closure. You don't need to rehash the past because you're not looking for emotional fulfillment from them anymore. Your fulfillment comes from within. You owe yourself peace, not an emotional roller coaster. Now let's talk about the emotional impact of your response. By keeping things neutral, you also avoid giving them power over your emotions. When you respond with emotional detachment, you show that you've mastered your emotions and that their text doesn't control your day. You've learned to value yourself more than the need to explain yourself, and that's a huge sign of growth. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that you owe someone an explanation or that you need to fix everything. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone anything but your own happiness. So when you reply, do so in a way that reflects your newfound strength. Remember, high-value people don't scramble for answers. They respond with grace and dignity, knowing that their time and energy are precious. They don't engage in conversations that drain them. They choose to spend their time on things and people that elevate them. The next time you're tempted to write a long, emotional response, stop and remember this. You are worthy of peace, respect, and emotional control. That's what a high-value response is all about. Number 6. Watch their reaction. It tells you everything. One of the most telling signs of their true intentions lies in how they react to your response. If you've kept your reply short, neutral, and detached, their next move will reveal whether they truly care about you or whether they were just testing the waters to see if they still have access to you. If they push harder, asking more questions, or trying to engage in deeper conversation, it's a clear sign they expected you to be eager. They thought that your silence or indifference would push you to chase them, to beg for answers, or to rekindle the emotional connection. They want to see if you're still that person who would fall at their feet and jump at the opportunity to reconnect. But the truth is, this is a power play, and if you've been strong in your response, you'll see right through it. They're not looking to connect. They're looking to reclaim control. On the other hand, if they disappear again, suddenly retreating or cutting off contact entirely, this is a big red flag. They were just testing you, seeing if you would respond, seeing if you still had feelings, or if you'd be available when they needed you. They aren't coming back with genuine intentions. They were merely checking to see if you're still emotionally vulnerable or if your life is as easy to interrupt as it was before. This is the person who dips in and out of your life like a shadow, only reappearing when they want something, but never offering anything real in return. Now, let's get to the real truth. Most people don't come back because they love you. They come back because they've lost control of you. Think about that for a moment. They've had time to process, to wonder, and to question. They've seen you grow, seen you pull away, and in their minds, they've lost their grip on you. They want to feel like they still have power, like they can still get under your skin. That's why they reach out, not because they're filled with love, but because their ego has taken a hit. They're no longer the one in control, and they want to regain that control at all costs. When they come back with no real effort or follow-through, it's not a sign of love. It's a sign of ego damage control. They miss the feeling of having you around. They miss the emotional validation you provided, but they don't miss the person you've become. You've grown, and they're still stuck in their old patterns. Watch closely. Their reaction will tell you everything you need to know about their true intentions. Now, drop this affirmation in the comments. I'm no one's emotional backup. Number 7. Move forward or close the door. Now that you've had time to reflect on everything, on their message, their motives, and their actions, it's time for you to make a final decision. This is your moment to take back control, to stand firm in your self-worth, and to choose what's best for you. Ask yourself, are they bringing peace into your life, or are they just stirring the pot, reopening old wounds you've worked so hard to heal from? Think about it. If they walked away before without putting up a fight, why should they get a second chance now? Why should they be allowed to come back into your life just because they've decided they're bored, lonely, or curious? They didn't fight for you when it mattered, so why should they get to waltz back in as if nothing happened? You've already shown them how strong you are by moving on, by rebuilding your life, and by gaining clarity. Don't let their inconsistency undo all the hard work you've put into yourself. If their return is just another cycle of back and forth, you already know how it ends. It ends with you being emotionally drained. It ends with the same repetitive drama, the same unresolved feelings, the same heartbreak. And deep down, you know you deserve better than that. You deserve peace, clarity, and stability. And if they're not bringing those things to your life, then it's time to close the door on them for good. Remember this: never go back to what broke you. You've grown, you've learned, you've healed. Don't let someone come back and disrupt your peace just because they need validation or are looking for a momentary ego boost. You are not their emotional backup, and you don't owe them anything, especially not your heart. You are in control of your life now. This is not about giving someone a second chance. It's about giving yourself the peace you've earned. And if they're not contributing to that peace, if they're not adding real value to your life, then it's time to keep moving forward, leaving the past exactly where it belongs, behind you. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose my peace over my past. Now, it's all up to you. Will you react with emotion, allowing your past to cloud your judgment? Or will you respond with power, maintaining your control and your peace? Remember, you're not the same person they left behind. You've grown stronger, more resilient, and more self-aware. Don't let anyone treat you like you're still stuck in the past. Don't let them walk back in as if nothing ever happened. You're worthy of respect, and your peace is worth more than their temporary presence. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content that puts you back in control. I'll be back with more empowering advice to help you reclaim your life and your peace. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.